this. Okay. All right. All good. Okay, good. So, hello everybody. Sebastien from PosterLab. Here we go again for another Pulse of the Market. I'm super happy today to welcome my friend Joe, directly from the US. We are going to have a discussion about collaboration, how to make collaboration and why it makes sense in today's world, talking about transformation. So I'm very much looking forward, let's say, our discussion today. Maybe what I propose, Joe, maybe if we can do a quick intro about yourself, if you can quickly present yourself, and then we go right into the questions.
Okay, yeah, my name is Joe Kittel. I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and as far as relevant background, I am an electrical engineer by schooling, honors, so I'm intelligent, and with 20 years at Hewlett-Packard. I take an engineer's approach to alliancing and partnerships, and so I'm looking at fundamental principles. I want to understand how things work, why they don't work. And I spent 17 years at Hewlett-Packard doing strategic alliances, and I describe them as collaborative R&D. If they weren't about affecting change in product or technology within HP, we didn't do it. So I was not field-based alliancing in terms of co-marketing and co-selling. I was co-development.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Joe. So here we go. First question. So that's you know, when we were let's say talking together, what I was telling you is that when I run interviews, at least in Europe, with let's say VP of Innovation, Director of Partnership across a large spectrum, but mainly large manufacturing organization, there is this need that they are telling me, Sebastien, we want to increase the numbers of collaboration we do. Why? Because let's say we want to defend our market position, and to do this, we need to go faster to market. But the struggle is that innovation is becoming more and more complex, more and more cross-disciplinary. So they know they need to put in place, let's say, collaboration, but in a structured and systematic way. So when you have these people in front of you, in front of us that are kind of struggling, what kind of methodology would you advise them to put in place to really structure and develop a powerful collaboration in R&D partnerships?
So what I use and have developed over the last 25, 30 years is what I call the two-slide methodology. Now that might sound simplistic, but it is simple, and it's derived from the program on negotiation at Harvard, MIT, and Tufts universities. So it's how do you negotiate effective, complex, long-term relationships, exactly what we're about. So I want to present just a few slides. You can see that?
Yeah, I think it's going to come in a few seconds. Let's give it a moment. So far, not. Yes, here we go. All good.
You see the slide?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So I think of it as getting to simplicity on the other side of complexity. So alliances are very, very complex, and I acknowledge that. There's a vast array of complexities, and I don't even want to get into it. I think we all know they are. And so getting to simplicity, which is incredibly empowering, freeing up time and energy, can actually have a very simple start. So here, by the way, we're going to make these slides available. You don't need to spend time trying to read through these. I'm not going to read through these, but it can have a very simple start. And the key thing is, once you start collecting information in the forms of what are the value impediments, what stands in the way, and what are we trying to create together? And so I have an extensive training on this that I can provide to people that describes how this works. So there can be a simple start. Once you start, it changes your mindset, changes how you think about the relationship. This is basically the process that we went through when I was on the Hewlett-Packard Microsoft corporate level strategic alliance. So no matter how big and complex it is, basically I want to capture around 6 to 8 points of input into the process that span the value chain and relevant levels of the organization. So this is a flow chart, how you start off with open-ended questions and interviews, and then you get into what I call deep dialogue, which is different than interviewing and surveying. It's different than conducting a poll. But basically, you create a distillation of what do you hear as the voice of the collective across the interface between the companies in terms of what are the challenges and what's the opportunity. This is another perspective on the two-slide methodology. Basically, it's about unlocking the value, and it focuses in two different areas. One are the relationship and people issues, which accounts for anywhere from 40 to 50% of the success. Most businesses ignore relationship, or they think about it as a problem area that needs to be fixed and managed. Well, it turns out that the vast majority of success or failure is tied to relationship. And this is unaddressed by business. It's non-traditional. It is the core. It is the root cause. And that tends to lead into the value impediment slide. The quantitative issues are what we're after all the time, the tangible results, is really, around half of the success. It's mostly addressed by business. They are traditional transactional orientations. So, and that leads into the incremental value slide. So, I don't know how I stopped sharing. I don't see. So is that any questions from that? I don't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
All good. So I propose, let's say we go to the next question, maybe, Joey, and then we will take the question in the end.
Okay.
So let's go to the next question. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and when I hear also the power of collaboration, I'm a big, let's say, not fan, but I strongly believe that the only way forward is to really structure the way you collaborate to be able to scale it and to become much more mature at it. You are, I think you are sharing the same view, but you are using a slightly different way. You are talking about engineering a relationship. Yeah. So how do you do this?
Okay. So it goes back to this slide. You get the content of this two-slide methodology. And again, it's about hearing the voice of the collective, listening, distilling down, listening and distilling down. So you get results from both value impediments and incremental value that are obvious connections into how does this relationship get structured? What are the metrics? What are the processes? What's the team? How do they interact? So that's stuff that business knows how to do. What they don't do so well, what we don't do so well, is looking at the qualitative issues. And it's the qualitative or the intangible issues in relationship itself that actually lead to the quantitative results. So this spider diagram covers 10 issues, and they would be defined by the business, saying these are important to the business, it's important to this relationship, and we want to manage the relationship. We want to understand these issues. And so because they are qualitative, we do qualitative assessments over time. We ask 10 questions, a number of options on 1 to 5. How do you rate trust? How do you rate openness of communication? Do you understand the vision between the companies? Are we aligned on purpose? So these are the intangible qualitative issues that actually lead to the quantitative results. Go ahead.
No, that's right. All good.
Okay.
All good.
So in summary, but what we do is we capture the essence of the relationship. And I say the essence of any alliance can be described in these two slides, and they can drive processes and metrics, feed into systems, and they can define the structure of the relationship. So at a higher level, I think of it as let's let the alliance itself architect itself. If we're willing to hear what the alliance has to say by listening to the voice of the collective, it will tell us how it needs to be structured. It will be self-directed in how we manage it. So that's at a high level, but the details they're unique to each relationship. What are the challenges? What are the opportunity? How do we design for that?
Well, I very much like it, Joe, because I see a lot of struggle out there from, let's say, the people we are interviewing, let's say the senior innovation leaders. They don't know where to start. So I like the idea that you are giving them a frame. You're saying there is a way to do it. There is a way to make it right. There is a way to structure and to scale it. So I like this engineering of the relationship. Yeah. So maybe should we go to the next question? I see that you are sharing the slide about the manager. So it says the question is now, okay, so there's a methodology, there's a structure, but what about, let's say, the people? So
Yeah.
you need someone, let's say you need some
Yeah.
kind of a strategic relationship manager or alliance manager that is going to
Yeah.
to kind of steer and structure so that it works, right?
Yep. And here I've come up with three variables that are important for somebody to manage a long-term relationship between companies, a partnership, an alliance, a relationship, however you want to describe it. And the three factors are time, value, and space. So basically, a strategic relationship manager, an alliance manager, needs to have a timeless perspective. They need to be concerned about both the tangible and the intangible forms of value, and they need to be unlimited by space, meaning they can go anywhere in the organization. The only role in a business that comes close to it is that of a CEO. And I say that by comparing a strategic relationship manager or an SRM, an alliance manager, to that of a CEO, actually limits them and it frustrates them because they wish they had more power. They wish they had a bigger budget and they're not going to get it. Usually it's all informal. And so what they need to rely on rather than the formal power and the official presence, the control is informal power, virtual presence. And there's a process I won't get into now called self-obsolescence, where as you do that, as you give freely of what you know, your presence increases, your power actually increases. And so this slide actually compares traditional roles in business to that of a strategic relationship manager. And we show when we're thinking in terms of time, value, and space, how these traditional roles in business end up limiting the ability to create value. The business will probably accept those limitations because they always have them. But unless the person who has become an SRM is willing to expand their sense of identity to be those things on the previous slide, they will end up limiting the relationship's ability to find and create value.
Thank you very much, Joe. I mean, this leads us to the last question, and then we open the floor for questions from the audience. But I mean, you are talking basically about transformation. So
yeah.
And I think right now there's a lot of companies. When I say they are lost, they don't know where to start, because I think they are figuring out that they need to transform the way they innovate. So
Yeah.
And put, let's say, partners as the center of the innovation processes, because basically their partners are going to help them win because they have knowledge that the other corporations do not have. So do you think that this view of having a kind of a partnership centric view with the right structure can be the right path for transforming the company to be better fit for today's environment?
Okay, I've got a bad internet connection, so I lost some of your question. I think that question is asking about transformation and how can a strategic alliance, a partnership, be itself the source of transformation. And it's important to realize, from my perspective, and I think this is true, that a collaborative R&D relationship is business's most intense and most challenging form of relationship, because you're dealing with intellectual property, you're dealing with all kinds of stuff. So you got to have it's analogous to an intimate interpersonal relationship. So if we think about our intimate interpersonal relationships, they can help us see how an intense collaborative R&D relationship has a lot of similarities. And I say within the relationship itself, as we're working on this intense, intimate, intercompany relationship, things tap into these gifts in terms of appreciating relationship. How do you develop trust through confrontation? What are the forms of leadership? How can you be, an agent of change and also enact healthy insurgency? How do you create a healthy climate? How do you look at value beyond sales revenue and building a sense of community? So I say that these are the gifts that emerge out of relationship itself. If we're willing to hear the voice of the collective, let it direct us, and have somebody in place who is willing to hear those things and share them with business. And so I really believe that the alliance itself can be the source of transformative ideas. I'm not hearing you. I don't know if it's my
I was
internet.
just saying thank you, Joe. I think it's very powerful and it's totally right what you are saying. I'm going to open the floor for questions for the audience. So if you have any question, just jump in directly into the discussion and address your question directly to Joe. He'll be more than happy to answer. So I mean, I'm opening the floor for everyone. Any question? No question? All clear?
Hans Ulrich,
Maybe
it's been a long time.
Can you guys hear me?
And yes, we do.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is Rolf Heimes talking. I got a quick question. You pointed out that there's IP, potential IP issues. So what's the legal framework that you need from your perspective, from your experience, that allows two companies to collaborate, yet still keep their individual IP ownership?
Well, I mean, that is the challenge, is where do you find the line and says, this is mine, this is yours, this is ours. And
Yeah.
I think, you've got to have a contract and you spell that out correctly, but you also, I think, need a teaming agreement that's flexible and adaptive. So I say you put into the contract whatever you want to have die or whatever you want to have the life sucked out of it. But those are important issues. That sounds dramatic, but you want to define money and people and intellectual property. And I think I would err on the side of having more shared intellectual property than separate, because that encourages collaboration. And the issue oftentimes is not who has the collaboration, who has the intellectual property, but who knows what to do with it. And I would say those two partners are probably one of the only people in the world that know what to do with the intellectual property they jointly created. I don't know if that helps.
It does. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rolf. Hans, do you have a question?
Yes. First of all, I'm delighted to meet Joe again by the way of this webinar, and so hi, Joe. And well, my question is, I experienced that a lot of strategic alliances have cultural problems. I mean, company culture problems.
Yes.
And of course, everything is what you said on the last slide is right. But they struggle how to get there, how to get to trust, how to get to a good communication, how to do it. And value, okay, value is mostly not only the profit, but to achieve the next milestone, and so on and so on. And the leadership has a problem with, for instance, I just cite a manager's quote. We did all the health checks, but we don't get to the milestone. What happens? So the how-to and the training or whatsoever, and not only the training, which is for some days and then it's gone. That is the challenge.
Yeah. So what I heard most is you've got cultural differences, corporate cultural differences between the companies. How do you deal with that? And that is the impediment, because each side sees the other as something different. I'm going to share a slide it's not in the packet I sent you, Sebastien, but it talks about the HP Microsoft Corporate Alliance. And actually, this ended up being the centerpiece of a Harvard Business Review article called Simple Rules for Making Alliances Work. But from this, we created this 3-axis slide where we're able to compare and contrast the two companies on their orientation on competition, customer value, and technology. And the point of this is to say, it's important to help people understand the difference of perspective between the companies, how they see the world, how they see themselves. And that's really the essence of the value impediment slide, because that is the impediment.
Thank you, Hans, for the question. Thank you, Joe.
Yes, it is. It is true like that. It is the impediment. And just once again, my question would be, what in your experience now showed you what could get over or through the impediment? Is
Well,
there
it's-
any key?
Yeah. I think you were alluding to it, which is education. So basically what you do in the value impediments is mostly drawing from the content on each company's view of each other, each company's view of themselves, and then the recommendations for overcoming the chasm. So mostly it's around educating the people who work in the relationship and the executives so they can see the world from the other side's perspective. And once you do, then their behavior makes sense. They're no longer seen as signs of deviousness, incompetency, or lunacy, which was happened when you don't understand their perspective.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. So we are heading towards the end of this Pulse of the Market, so which is on purpose a very short format. I would like to thank the audience. I would like to thank Joe for his deep insight and sharing with us how our collaboration can work and how collaboration can be leveraged. So I encourage you to look at Joe profile on LinkedIn and his videos that we are going to share. We will also share a summary of today's so that you can share it with your colleagues and review it. And if you want to know anything about PosterLab, especially how we are helping large organizations to structure and scale their R&D collaboration, please feel free to reach out to us. We are working with BASF, we are working with Zeiss, Air Liquide, and some other customers, so more than happy to show it to you. And so I wish you, Joey, a very nice day, and for the people in Europe, a good evening. So, and take care, have a great time, and thank you again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.